covering the August primary live from your local election headquarters.
Good evening and welcome to the 7 on 8, tracking several big races around West Michigan on this primary night. I'm Lindsay McComo. We start with team coverage for you here on the 7 on 8. Leanne Hendricks is monitoring the Republican primary in the 3rd District congressional race. Kyle Mitchell is monitoring the primaries in the 6th District. And the man who's been preparing for this day for months now is here, of course, political reporter Rick Albin. Let's start live, though, at the Kent County Clerk's office, where News 8's Joe LaFurgey is there getting ready for what could be a long night. Joe.
Yeah, it sounded like a very long night, Lindsay. We're actually in front of the clerk's office, right at one of the City of Grand Rapids election drop boxes. This has been a very busy place. Just look down the street. We're on Ottawa, just outside of City Hall, and take a look at the line of cars that are starting to come down. It's been like this for the last hour or so. It's pretty simple. Voters drive up. They have their ballot in their hand. They drop it in the drop box. About every hour or so, staffers from the City Hall come out and unload the box and take it back up to the clerk's office. The pandemic, of course, driving most voters to go the absentee route this time around. Kent County sent some 127,000 absentee ballots out, and as of this afternoon, they'd received about 70% of those ballots back. Kent County Clerk expects it'll take well into tonight and tomorrow to get all those ballots counted. So why so long? Well, unlike in-person voting, when a voter ID is checked and the ballot just goes into a machine, absentee ballots take much longer to process. Just opening up all those envelopes can take hours. Signatures have to be verified. Poll watchers from both parties must agree on the intent of that voter, and that's all before that vote is tabulated.
So we're just asking for patience, and we want all of our citizens to be confident in the process that we have, and we are not going to sacrifice accuracy and security for speed.
If you haven't dropped off your ballot, well, you've got less than an hour to do so. Again, these boxes, these drop-off boxes, are located throughout the city. And of course, if you live in the suburbs in one of the townships or one of the cities out in the suburbs, those drop boxes should be at your city hall or township office. We'll be here throughout the night monitoring how things are going inside the clerk's office as well. We're live in Grand Rapids. Joe LaFurgey, News 8.
Joe, thank you. Now to the 2 U.S. House races. We'll start in the 3rd District. Leanne Hendricks is covering the Republican primary to replace Justin Amash in Congress. Leanne, what are you hearing as the polls wind down?
Lindsay, good evening to you. It is indeed one of the races to watch tonight. Let's show you the candidates who are vying for the seat that's currently being held by Justin Amash, who is not running for re-election. There are 5 candidates hoping to advance to the general election. Here they are: State Representative Lynn Affendulis, Joe Farrington, Peter Meyer, Tom Norton, and Emily Rafi. The big dollars in this race have been spent by Affendulis and Meyer, the 2 most recognized names on the ticket for their connection to West Michigan businesses. They've raised questions about each other's party loyalty and loyalty to President Donald Trump. Tom Norton has also spent some ad dollars and garnered some significant support. One of the big ones, most recently for endorsing him, was an endorsement from the Grand Rapids Police Officers Association that represents GRPD rank and file. He too aligns himself with President Trump and has done some advertising, though certainly not to the degree of Affendulis or Meyer. Rafi also bills herself as a conservative and Trump supporter. Farrington is the only candidate that says he does not support the president, billing himself as a fiscal conservative and social moderate. At any rate, the winner will face Democrat candidate who's running unopposed on the Democrat side, Hillary Scholten. She's raised a lot of money. In fact, most recent reports indicate that she's raised more than any of the Republican candidates individually. So it's expected to be a heated race once we get past this primary. But we'll see who we end up with, hopefully tonight. We're live in Grand Rapids. Leanne Hendricks, News 8.
Leanne, thank you. To the 6th District now. That's Fred Upton's seat. News 8's Kyle Mitchell is covering that race for us tonight. Kyle.
Lindsay, Republican Fred Upton has a primary challenger tonight, and 2 Democrats are battling to face him in November. Here's a look at the candidates. First to the race on the Democratic side, State Representative John Hoadley faces teacher Jen Richardson. That winner will face tonight's Republican winner in November, Fred Upton has represented West Michigan in Congress since 1987. Tonight he faces political newcomer Elaine Oliki in the Republican Party. Now, as those results come in tonight, we plan to speak with those candidates. Live in the Kalamazoo studio, Kyle Mitchell, News 8.
Kyle, thank you. Now to the expert, political reporter Rick Albin. And Rick, I want to start with some numbers here. We're going to put these up on your screen as well. More than 1.5 million absentee ballots have been returned so far. That's the most ever in our state, and it's also more than the total voter turnout for the August primary 4 years ago. Those numbers on your screen right now. So how could we see those numbers impact results tonight?
Well, let that sink in for a minute. More people had already voted before the polls opened this morning than voted in all of the election 4 years ago. Now, there are a number of differences. We know people are very focused on a lot of political issues right now, and we know that people are also very anxious to vote. We know that the no reason absentee balloting combined with the coronavirus epidemic has made more people want to vote absentee, but I think this also represents something else. It represents more focus, more people being more involved in the election. Now, it doesn't say a lot to me about who that benefits, because at the end of the day, we're not going to know until we count all those ballots, and it may not be at the end of this day, by the way, until we count all of those ballots and see if one party or the other had a benefit from more voters turning out than they did 4 years ago, and more voters turning out than the other party did. And that will be the thing I'll be looking for when it comes to those absentees.
In terms of the big races, which are you focusing in on, and how does that also potentially shape November?
Yeah, it's big. The race at Leon's on over in the third, he's very right. That's one to watch, because if the DCCC and some of the other groups that support Democratic candidates continue to come into this race, in no matter which one of these Republicans win, remember it's an open seat, and so those are sometimes more vulnerable. So if they could put pressure on that seat, that could become a very interesting race. We've also got these other open seats in the 70th, the 73rd, the 60th, and the 61st. Those are Michigan House seats. Those are all open seats. I don't know that any of those get a lot of pressure, but I think some of those could be in play in November too. So watching those very carefully. But frankly, I'm watching them all, because with all of those votes coming in so early, with all of those absentee ballots, not knowing which precincts they're coming from, at least until they start coming up, not getting any information from the polls, no exit polling, because virtually nobody was at the polls. The outcome tonight or tomorrow, whenever we get to that outcome, is going to be something to watch, and it'll really give us a better idea what those absentees look like too.
So you're saying patience for tonight potentially for results?
Well, I don't know if patience, but get used to it, I think, because if it's going to be until tomorrow for the primary, think about how many more people are going to vote in the general and how long that might take. They've only got about 90 days to make improvements to that.
All right, Rick Albin, thank you. Of course, Wood TV is your local election headquarters. We will have complete coverage of these races tonight at 10 and 11. As always, you can also find the very latest over at woodtv.com. You can also download and check our mobile app for the latest updates.